A lot of you have started noticing that I have a different skill build for PvE and have been asking me for an update. I didn't want to update it on quest log as I wanted to make sure it is the absolute highest damage dealing PvE build for Spear Dagger. After successfully clearing multiple tier 15 dimensional trial runs and holding top ranks in Gate of Infinity, I am confident that this is the ultimate PvE build. In this video I will only focus on the PvE skill build, going over each skill and specialization, and at the end I will show you the rotation and how it works in the practice. This is the full skill build that I use for PvE, and you're probably noticing few new skills. I was able to find a build that uses both Burst and Ignite on the Spear side and both Poison and Thunder on the Dagger side, combining all 4 weaken effects in one build. On the Dagger side, the reason why I'm using both Poison and Thunder is very simple. Fatal Stigma is one of the most underrated skills that can deal crazy amount of damage, and so few Dagger players actually use it. In case you didn't know, Fatal Stigma damage increases based on how many stacks the enemy has. But the best thing about it is that both Poison and Thunder stacks increase damage at the same time, meaning that Fatal Stigma Explosion can deal damage equal to 40 stacks, 20 of the Poison and 20 of the Thunder. On top of that, it can double attack since Dagger has an offhand double attack chance, and each of those double attacks can heavy attack, meaning one Fatal Stigma Explosion can deal 4 times the damage. Here's a comparison of Fatal Stigma damage with 0 stacks, with 20 stacks and with 40 stacks. It's quite a notable difference. That's why I'm running regular Inject Venom to apply Poison with attacks and Thundercloud's effect accumulation specialization on Cleaving Moonlight and Frenzied Sword Dance. Another cool thing about Dagger is how good a skill the Frenzied Sword Dance actually is. The main reason for using it is of course it deals quite a decent amount of damage, but it can effortlessly apply 20 Poison and 20 Thunder stacks with effect accumulation specialization. But the thing that you probably didn't know is that with AoE specialization it applies 3 times as many stacks, because the AoE specialization actually also hits the single target. Here is a comparison of how many stacks it applies without AoE spec and with AoE spec. With the press of one button, you apply 40 stacks primed and ready for Fatal Stigma Explosion. And since Frenzied Sword Dance and Fatal Stigma are on similar cooldown, both of those will always be up at the same time and you always combine them together. Since it is so easy to apply 20 Thunder stacks, it only makes sense to use Thundercloud's bombing, as you will almost always have the ability to use it on 20 Thunder stacks. Final Dagger skill is Umbral Spirit with Poison Damage Increase spec, which works best in combination of Spear multi-hit skills like Phoenix Barrage and Brutal Fury to trigger as many shadows as possible. On the Spear side, everything pretty much remained the same as from the old build. Calling Arc with Burst skill spec is still used to apply 5 burst stacks in combination with Gale Rush, which will guarantee 5 stacks every single time and also give you the max attack speed buff. Brutal Fury is the bread and butter of Spear damage and it outperforms Explosive Fury by a mile, while Phoenix Barrage helps with triggering Umbral Spirit Shadows, applying Ignite Weaken effect, and sets up the rotation with critical damage increase. Rising Slash is used with the Explosion Increase specialization for big bursts at the end of the rotation. The reason why I am not using Slaughtering Slash is because you spend 7 points for exactly the same damage. The only difference is that the Slaughtering Slash is slightly faster. If you prefer wasting 7 points on a slightly faster skill cast time and the same amount of damage, go for it. I only use it in the Gate of Infinity because sometimes you need to proc Explosion on the first hit. Lastly, I use Sentinel Bastion to give myself and my group heavy attack chance increase. Passive skills have not changed and they are the same as they were before. I'm also going to skip gear, runes, traits and masteries, simply because we are soon getting tier 2 gear, new masteries and artifacts, which will change how Spear Dagger builds. But the only thing that won't change is the actual skill build. Keep in mind that I have PvP gear, PvP runes, PvP traits and PvP masteries, and I'm able to absolutely obliterate bosses in PvE. So imagine what this skill build is capable of if you build it towards actual PvE gear. So don't worry about the gear, don't invest into anything, keep what you have and save everything for tier 2 gear. Finally, the rotation. First I'm going to show you the full rotation at full speed, then I'm going to dissect it skill by skill and explain why I am using them in this order. The best place to test single target damage are dummies in Vienta Village, but outside of the walls right here. This is the only spot that has one target dummy that acts as a single target, which helps with Frenzied Sword Dance testing. Activate Inject Venom, Calling Arc to apply burst stacks, Cleaving Moonlight to apply thunder stacks. The reason for that is because Frenzied Sword Dance can bug out sometimes and it doesn't always apply 20 stacks, so with Cleaving Moonlight you guarantee those 20 stacks. Then activate Umbral Spirit and Sentinel Bastion. The reason why I am activating in mid-rotation and not before is because the buff lasts 6 seconds, which is exactly the time needed to fully burst. Gale Rush to apply attack speed and the remaining burst stack. Frenzied Sword Dance to apply the stacks. Fatal Stigma into Phoenix Barrage, which will proc Umbral Spirit and also gives 15% crit damage for 3 seconds, which is enough time for the rest of rotation to fit in. Brutal Fury inside the 15% crit damage increase for the maximum burst damage. Inject Venom Spin, which deals max damage at 20 poison stacks if you can fit it, if not it's not a problem, and finish off with Thundercloud's Bombing and Rising Slash for the final burst. The whole rotation takes 6 seconds and it takes full benefit of Gale Rush attack speed, Sentinel Bastion heavy attack chance and Umbral Spirit shadow procs, while the main burst skills take full advantage of the Phoenix Barrage critical damage increase. After this initial rotation there are 2 ways it can go. First, if you have at least 2 bow players in the group and they both apply deadly markers, all of your skills will reset before you finish the rotation. The most important thing to know is don't panic and finish your first rotation fully, then you almost instantly can start going into the same rotation. And the second way is if there are no bows in your group, so all of your cooldowns will be fairly slow. The most important thing to know here is that Calling Arc plus Gale Rush plus Brutal Fury will be up before anything else, so use it freely whenever it is up. Use Cleaving Moonlight to apply thunder stacks, and use Thundercloud's Bombing as soon as it's up, regardless if you have max stacks or not, as it will also be up before everything else. Phoenix Barrage, Umbral Spirit, Frenzied Sword Dance, Fatal Stigma and Rising Slash have very similar cooldowns, and all of them will be up around the same time. Feel free to wait 1 or 2 seconds for it to all sync up and then just blast the rotation in order. For Gate of Infinity you will have to adjust some skill specialization and rotation based on the boss and their mechanics, but essentially you use the same skills just in slightly different order. An AoE farming build is still pretty much the same, where you only really need Thunder Spirit, Explosive Fury and Javelin to destroy large groups of mobs. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. In the description there is an updated quest log with the skill build. PvP skill builds have also changed and I will have updated videos on them very soon. When tier 2 gear is released, I will have fully updated videos and guides for everything. But for now, I'm still experimenting and I honestly have no idea what is good. Thank you for watching, consider subscribing to stay up to date and watch some of my other videos appearing on your screen.